Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody who joins us. My name is Oleksandra, and Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform continues its operation today. It's been 9 years of the war, and today is day 390 of the beginning of the full-scale invasion of a homeland by a Russian aggressor. And I want to thank the representatives of all the mass media who tell the world the truth about our heroic resistance. Now joining us online is Oleksandra Romantsova, Executive Director at the Center for Civil Liberties NGO. Good afternoon, Miss Oleksandra. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Well, I'm reminding for everybody present here that it was the Center for Civil Liberties which became the first NGO in the history of Ukraine who received the Nobel Prize of Peace, and now we will be talking with Miss Oleksandra about the event that we were waiting for a long time. I'm talking specifically about the international arrest on Putin. What does it mean for us, Miss Oleksandra? What does it mean for international community? How this resolution will influence the further events? Well, first of all is the arrest order. Issued by the countries which are the participants, the signatories and ratifiers of Roman Statute, and now are part of the International Criminal Court. They have to arrest and forward Putin and Maria Lvova-Belova to The Hague in case they have such an opportunity. Why so? Because unfortunately International Criminal Court in this case and generally has no remote form of conviction. That's why the proceedings are only possible given the physical presence of those to be arrested. Unfortunately, there are cases in the history when even the members of the International Criminal Court, mostly they were the African countries, they have not complied with their obligation, but we understand that the main thing is that there is the international recognition, and issue of such order means that International Criminal Court has very significant proofs and evidences that those people are guilty of forced deportation of children, which is a crime against humanity. We understand that the list of crimes committed by Russian Federation by their armed forces is way more broad than that. It's thousands of crimes, and the International Criminal Court took the highest rank crime which can and where the guilt of Putin can be proved. We are humbled by that fact, but on the other hand the process may be very lengthy, and it does not exclude the necessity for a separate tribunal for the crime of aggression, because the crime of aggression is a way more broad accusation, and it concerns not only Putin but also Lavrov, for whom international travels are way more important than for Putin, who sits in his bunker for a year. And we understand that this is not something to replace and to stop the creation of the court for crime of aggression. And this is support of such resolution. It will cover about 20 people who are the top-ranking government officials in Russian Federation, like Minister of Foreign Affairs, President, and some other top-level officials. Well, it's good news anyway. Before Putin is being convicted, he needs to get arrested, but again, it would not cover all the crimes which are already documented and are being investigated by international team of investigators and our National Prosecutor's Office. As to the crime of aggression, that's clear. You explained it to us. What about the genocide crime? Can it be an additional qualification together with that which concerns the deportation of our children? Can it be added, or there will be another proceedings opened for the crime of genocide? Yes, it's possible, and we see at this moment that there is a report of the investigation mission which said that there are no indicators of genocide so far, because we have to understand that there should be a political meaning of genocide. It's important that Putin stated many times that Ukrainian language is fake, Ukrainian culture doesn't exist, Ukraine doesn't exist as the state, they are just got out of hand. The Russians who got out of hand. This is enough for political genocide, but we have to understand that those are the regular political quarrels. And the Belarusians, I apologize, the Bulgarians, they keep saying that there are no northern Macedonians, for example. So this is something that is used in political discourse sometimes on a regular basis, but it's not enough for legal justification. Is described in separate convention, and there is on the list of the international crimes in the Roman statute. And there is a complicated thing about this. We have to prove the intention. It's not that they kidnap Ukrainian children because they were just passing by, but that this was their intention to reduce the number of the ethnic group of Ukrainians. It has to be proven as the intention, and we should prove a number of orders communicated to the army, to those who perform those orders, whether it's possible to use that case with the deportation of children as a part of these genocide proceedings. Yes, it is so, and many analysts, they emphasize on that possibility, and they see this perspective in the activities of International Criminal Court. That will be of advantage to us if Putin is being put behind the bars for at least one case, and then for systemic acts of genocide. It's useful for us because recognition of Putin as the suspect of international crimes gives us a lot of pluses, so to say, and many opportunities to talk about this in the international level in support of Ukraine, and recognition of the practice of what Russian Federation does with a war like this. Not like with the war that happened in the world, more than 35 conflicts that are going on, but it's strictly identified that this is a person who implements the practice, the politics of aggression, which includes international crimes. Ms. Oleksandra, what does the international experience tells us? Will there be an opportunity, the real opportunity, to bring Putin to justice? Is the third president within the history of international law who was accused, and one of them died in just a couple of days before he could be arrested, and another one is in the prison in his own country. So there is a high probability that that country will end his life with a death penalty. So this practice is not comforting, but in order to have it work for 100%, to make him end up in the Hague 100%, the practice shows that it's way more complicated. At the same time, our homework is to have our legislation in a way that it is ready to react not only to the accusations and arrest of Putin, but at the same time to other international criminals, because unfortunately now Ukrainian legislation is not ready to have any of those criminals change identity. I mean the Russian soldiers, officers, and an important moment is for us to ratify Roman statute, to prepare our legislation for recognition of all the war crimes like crime against humanity, which is absent in our criminal code, because no matter what happens to Putin in the international level, and it's important to overcome his international immunity, so we will have to work a lot on the cases at the national level to have our national justice system prepared for it. And it's desirable to have the international experts involved in this process. So we keep working on. We have a lot of work ahead. You mentioned the immunity. Does this order deprive him of this immunity? Yes, the International Criminal Court is the mechanism which was created for a very long time. Within decades, there was decades of adoption of and ratification of the Roman Statute by many countries throughout the world. It's a very extensive agreement, and the qualification of the International Criminal Court can overcome this immunity, which covers president or his equivalent, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the head of the government, or their equivalents in the systems of any countries. So traditionally they are protected, they have immunity, but they are not protected against the International Criminal Court. Such immunity is absent. Well, there was recently a statement by the Investigation Committee of Russian Federation of the aggressor state. They said that they initiated a case against the prosecutor and judges of International Criminal Court. What does it tell us? Can you give us a couple of comments on that? I apologize, but this is just a show for those affected by those zombie practices. The citizens of Russian Federation, they can open any case hypothetically against what? Against people doing their job in compliance with the international documents. Well, it's just a show. It's just a show for their internal media market. Dear colleagues, if you have any questions in the studio, please go ahead. Good afternoon. Ukrinform. The question is there a possibility that Putin arrives to one of the countries who ratified the Roman Statute, but they refuse to arrest him? And are there any mechanisms contemplated for that case? Unfortunately, as I mentioned, there was practice like that, mostly in the countries of the African continent, and some countries were directly stating that they would not comply with their obligations in front of the International Criminal Court. Some were manipulating time, letting the criminals leave the country, and then saying like, oh, we had to arrest him. So unfortunately, yes, such situation is possible. There is a probability that it may be a small country, I mean like a small democratic country, but there are countries which are not parts of the International Criminal Court, for example, United States. So I'm more curious about what would happen in countries like those which are not liable, but they cannot recognize the fact that such arrest order is a law. It's an obligation. So the practice, the reaction, you know, there is no international police, there is no international government which would punish them. We live in a world where every country is protected by their own sovereignty, but at the same time there should be diplomatic, economic and political consequences for such countries which manipulate their obligations or stands on the side of Russia in this conflict. They should lose their opportunities for international trade, for example, for the development of science, together with the international scientific community. So in fact there are many mechanisms of influence which were underused until now to protect Ukraine and cope with Russian aggression. If there are more questions, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Lorenzo Cremonesi from Italian press, newspaper Corriere della Sera, the National Daily. Madam, two questions. First of all, Lavrov. You're saying that Lavrov can be persecuted as Putin, the same status for the International Court, can be persecuted. So that practically it cannot go to the 123 countries that are signing the Roman Statute. First question. Second, what is the position of Ukraine? I understand Ukraine on principle approved the international Criminal Court, but didn't sign it. Can you explain to us what is the position, what happened, and when Ukraine will be full member of this International Court? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. For the time being, there is no order for the arrest of Lavrov. So International Criminal Court works with the issue of personal liability. If there are two persons in the arrest order, so those two persons would be the ones to be arrested. Sergei Lavrov is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russian Federation. For the time being, is not a person who is proposed to be arrested by the International Criminal Court. If further on in the resolution of the chamber who performs preliminary investigation, if he will be on that list, so there will be an arrest order issued in his regard. For the time being, he's only on the sanctions list, so he cannot show up in the noble society, so to say. As to the ratification of the Roman Statute, that's a pretty long story, really. There was so the Constitutional Court of Ukraine was not recognizing any other jurisdiction in Ukraine because it contradicts the constitution, and then another parliament made amendments to the constitution, and after those amendments there was a period that was booking non-ratification of the Roman Statute in order to get prepared to get the legislation prepared for ratification. But then the full-scale invasion has started. For us as the human rights actors, ratification of Roman Statute is very important, but the population hears a lot about different positions, and those positions, they say that there are certain risks, or there is impossibility to do it to the full extent, so to say. And this is exactly why currently Ukraine undertook this position to recognize the authority of International Criminal Court without ratification of Roman Statute, but we hope that ratification, which is a part of the association agreement with the European Union and part of our candidacy status, will happen in full, and we will work further on implementation of Roman Statute in our legislation. We support it 100%, and we think that it's urgent right now. But at the same time, Parliament, who should be taking care about this procedure, they have their timetable, and I think that Roman Statute will be included in it. Lorenzo has something to add.
Sorry, just to understand, on the base of your answer, Uno, so Lavrov at the moment, he can travel to Roma, to Brussels, to the United Nations, and he will be not arrested, and you say he cannot work? I don't understand. Can you clarify? Because really it's a very delicate point, because Lavrov is the foreign minister of Russia. Paradoxically, he is more important than Putin in this domain. He can go around and spread the Russian message. So at the moment, Lavrov can work as before the resolution of the court or not, first. And secondly, when realistically you think Ukraine will be full member of the International Court and will be like the other 123 members? Thank you.
Yes, once again, for the time being, there are no accusations against Lavrov. The International Criminal Court makes personal accusations. They are not the accusation of the countries, and respectively for all the people who take some offices. But we want to get this accusation for the crime of aggression in the International Criminal Court. This is how it should work. And International Criminal Court accuses personally the people who have certain authorities in certain countries and who commit some international crimes. This is why Maria Lvova-Belova is accused, Putin is accused. They both should be arrested if they are in the territory of one of those 123 countries. For the time being, Lavrov has no such restriction. I hope that International Criminal Court will continue their work and will accuse them, because his work on genocide and propaganda of this war is terrible. Ratification of the Roman Statute. Unfortunately, I'm no deputy and I cannot give any comments here because we have certain restrictions in understanding of the timetable of the parliament, so we cannot say what are the prospects. We want it for 8 years already. Ms. Oleksandra, getting back to the subject of our diplomatic international relations, such resolution as the international arrest order, to what extent does it give understanding that Putin is a persona non grata, or the leaders of the countries of Europe or the world, may they meet Putin anywhere, or it becomes completely impossible? No, it's not something that renders it impossible, but at the same time is the international expert opinion and International Criminal Court accusing somebody shows high level of risk. Was there a practice when someone was accused and then those accusations were lifted? Yes, the process on Bosnian generals proves it. So the accusation doesn't necessarily mean that you are guilty. So he's only accused, he's not yet recognized as a criminal. But still, if we talk about the democratic countries, for democratic countries it's something very serious signal. And I'm curious about the reaction of the countries who consider themselves the full-fledged members of European Union, but they still act very peculiarly during this conflict, like Montenegro or Serbia or Hungary, well, depending on the results that they want to show in terms of adherence of the democracy principles. So it doesn't help us at the diplomatic level, but it's not a final solution for everything we have, including in negotiations with our international partners. Thank you, Ms. Oleksandra. If there are still questions remaining on the floor, please let me know. We have no more questions. Thank you for this conversation, and we hope that shortly we will be able to hear that the International Tribunal started working. Meanwhile, I'm reminding you, joining us was Oleksandra Romantsova, the Executive Director at the Center for Civil Liberties NGO. Our next briefing is at 1500. We will have a panel discussion titled "An Energy Infrastructure of Ukraine in Conditions of War." We will talk about the preparation to new heating season. Bear with us. Work together for our victory, and glory to Ukraine.